Welcome to SVR IAS Academy Civil Services Coaching Program. In our Indian Polity lecture, we are discussing about Parliament of India. So far, we have covered the introduction part, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and we have covered about the presiding officers of Parliament of India. And now in this video lecture, we are going to see about devices of Parliament. Devices of parliamentary proceedings. The Parliament of India has adopted various devices for regulating their working hours. Accordingly, the Parliament of India has question hour, 0 hour, motions, point of order, half an hour discussion, short duration discussion, special mention, resolution. These were all the various devices employed by Parliament of India to maintain their regular working schedule. And in this video lecture, we are going to see about these different parliamentary devices in a detailed manner. First, let us see about question hour. Question hour is the first hour of every parliamentary meeting of the House. The details regarding question hour is provided in the rules of procedure of the House itself. During the question hours, the members used to ask questions to the ministers and minister give reply to them. Usually the question hour is conducted between the 11 am to 12 am. During the question hour, three kinds of questions can be asked. They were number 1, starred question, number 2, unstarred question, number 3, short notice question. First, let us see about starred question. During the starred question, the members of the parliament ask questions to the ministers and the minister is required to provide an oral answer. Since the minister is providing oral answer, the supplementary question can be raised to the minister. Number 2, unstarred question. During unstarred question, the members don't want oral answer, instead a written answer is sufficient to address the question, and in that case the supplementary question cannot be follows. And then the final type of question which can be asked during question hour is short notice question. The short notice question is asked by giving 10 days of time period for minister to answer it, and in this case the minister is expected to produce oral answer to the question. After question hour, the second parliamentary device for proceedings is 0 hour. The 0 hour is not mentioned in the rules of procedure of House. So it is an informal device which is available to the members of parliament to ask questions to the ministers without any prior notice to them. Actually, it is an Indian innovation in the field of parliamentary procedures, and this 0 hour device is available since 1962. Actually, the 0 hour is nothing but the issue which is taken during the time period of question hour to agenda of the day. That is, the 0 hour begins after question hour and it continues till the agenda of the day is taken into consideration. There is a time gap between the question hour and agenda of the day is what known as 0 hour. After 0 hour, the next important parliamentary proceeding devices is motions. The general public discussion about the important aspects cannot be brought to the House unless there is a motion is passed about it. Such kind of motion can be passed only with the prior consent of the presiding officer. It is one of the important point, do note it down. The motion in a House can be passed only with the consent of presiding officer. The presiding officer in the sense, speaker in the case of Lok Sabha and chairman in the case of Rajya Sabha. Such type of motions can be brought to the House by both ministers or any other private member of the House, and the House expresses its opinion or decision regarding the important public matters through by adoption or rejection of such kind of motions. The motions initiated by the ministers or private members in the House of Parliament for discussing about the matters of public importance fall into three principal categories. The three principal categories were number 1, substantive motion, number 2, subsidiary motion, and number 3, it is about substitute motion. First, let us see about substantive motion. The substantive motion is a self-contained independent proposal dealing with very important matters. Here you have to note down that it is an independent proposal. That is, it doesn't depends upon any other motions or any other matters. every detail regarding the motion is self-contained in the single passage of the motion bill. And you have to also note down that this substantive motion is passed only for very important matters. The very important matter in the sense for matters like impeachment of President of India or impeachment of Chief Election Commissioner. Likewise, for various important matters, the substantive motion is brought to the House. The second principal category of motion is substitute motion. Just now we have seen about substantive motion. The substantive motion is an independent motion and it is also self-contained, whereas the substitute motion is not an independent motion. Instead, it is a substitute for the original motion, and this substitute motion demands for alternation to the original motion. If suppose the substitute motion is adopted in the House of Parliament, then this substitute motion will supersede the original motion. That is the speciality of substitute motion. The third principal category of motion which can be brought to the House of Parliament by members is the subsidiary motion. The subsidiary motion in itself has no meaning in it, and the subsidiary motion cannot state the decision of the House without any reference to the original motion or without any reference to the original proceedings of the Parliament. Such kind of motion is what known as subsidiary motion. The subsidiary motion is further divided into three subcategories. They were number 1 ancillary motion, number 2 superseding motion, number 3 amendment. First let us see about ancillary motion. The ancillary motion is used as a regular way of proceedings in the House. That is, this ancillary motion is used with various kinds of business of the House of Parliament. The second subcategory of subsidiary motion is superseding motion. The superseding motion is moved in the Parliament of India during the course of debate on another issue or original issue. Such kind of superseding motion demands or seeks to supersede the original motion which is in consideration of the Parliament by that time. And then the third subcategory of subsidiary motion is amendment. This kind of amendment subsidiary motion demands only to modify or substitute the part of original motion. It is what known as amendment subsidiary motion. Closure motion. Closure motion is the important motion which is passed in the House of Parliament. The closure motion is moved to cut short the debate on a particular matter which is going on in the House of Parliament. If such kind of closure motion is accepted in the Parliament, then the debate on a particular public matter is stopped thereby and the public matter is directly put to the voting of the House. The closure motion falls into four important categories. They were number 1 simple closure, number 2 closure by compartments, number 3 concrete closure, number 4 guillotine closure. First let us see about the simple closure. The simple closure motion is moved when the matter which is on the process of the Parliament of India or on the debate of Parliament is already sufficiently discussed, and in such cases a member can move the simple closure motion in the House to put that matter into the voting process. The next closure motion is the closure by compartments. Now consider there is a lengthy bill with many clauses, and in such cases it is not possible to discuss clause by clause. So the Parliament used to group the clauses into various parts, and the parts were discussed as a whole, and finally the entire part is put to the voting process. This kind of proceedings in the Parliament is what known as closure by compartments. The third important category of closure motion is what known as concrete closure. The Parliament, due to the want of time, sometimes considers only important clauses of a lengthy bill, and in such cases only these important clauses of a lengthy bill is discussed and put to the voting process, whereas the intervening clauses which were skipped during the parliamentary proceedings were automatically considered as passed. Such kind of closure motion is known as concrete closure motion. The next and final important closure motion is what known as guillotine closure motion. In Parliament, we know that every bill and resolution is allotted with set of time frame, and if the time frame for that particular bill or resolution comes to an end, at that point of time, due to the want of time for other bills, the Parliament uses the guillotine closure motion. And in guillotine closure motion, Parliament brings the undiscussed clauses also into the voting process along with the discussed clauses. Such kind of motion is what known as guillotine closure motion. After closure motion, the privilege motion is the next important motion which is passed in the House of Parliament. This privilege motion is mainly concerned with the breach of parliamentary privileges by minister in the House of Parliament. Any member of the House of Parliament can move this privilege motion against a minister whenever the member feels that the minister has breached the privilege of House or any one or more of its members. Actually, this kind of privilege motion can be launched on the grounds of the minister withholding or hiding the fact from the House of Parliament regarding any public cases with a self-interest. And then on the second ground, if a minister is giving a wrong or distorted fact with a self-vested interest, then the privilege motion can be moved against such minister. The main motto or reason for moving a privilege motion is to censure the concerned minister, that is, showing the strong disapproval of the House to the concerned minister in a formal way. Such kind of motion is what known as privilege motion. Next important motion which can be passed in the House of Parliament is calling attention motion. This calling attention motion is clearly mentioned in the rules of procedure of the House. And then this calling attention motion is one of the Indian innovation in the field of parliamentary proceedings. This calling attention motion is in effect in Indian Parliament since 1954 onwards. This calling attention motion can be moved by member in the House of Parliament on two main conditions. That is, the member can move this calling attention motion to call the attention of the minister regarding any matters of urgent public importance, and also the member to seek the authoritative statement from the minister regarding such kind of public important matters. On these two grounds, the calling attention motion can be moved in the House of Parliament. The next important motion is adjournment motion. Just now we have seen the calling attention motion. In calling attention motion, the motion is moved by a member to draw the attention of a minister. But in case of the adjournment motion, the motion is moved by the member of Parliament to draw the attention of House. That is the difference between calling attention motion and the adjournment motion. Here, the members move the motion to draw the attention of House of the Parliament regarding any matters of urgent public importance. Also, for moving the adjournment motion, it requires a minimum of 50 members support in the House of Parliament. Such kind of adjournment motion have to be in the House for a minimum of 2 hours and 30 minutes. Since it disturbs the entire working process of the House of Parliament, it is known as an extraordinary device in the parliamentary proceedings. This adjournment motion has an element of censure to the government. That is, the adjournment motion shows the disapproval to the government. So, Rajya Sabha is not permitted to use the adjournment motion. It is against the Constitution of India. Hence, Rajya Sabha cannot be able to move the adjournment motion. Only Lok Sabha is able to move the adjournment motion. It is also an important point. Do note it down from prelims perspective. Rajya Sabha cannot be able to move the adjournment motion. Only Lok Sabha is capable of moving the adjournment motion. For moving adjournment motion in the House of Parliament, it should obey certain criteria. The criteria were: number 1, the adjournment motion should be definite, factual, and deals with the matters of urgent public importance. It is the predominant condition only which the adjournment motion can be moved in the House of Parliament. And then the adjournment motion should deal with one single matter. It should not deal with more than one matter, because if it do so, then the focus of the matter is distracted. So the adjournment motion is required to be dealing with only one matter. After which, the adjournment motion have to deal with matters of recent public occurrences. And you have to note down that such kind of adjournment motion should not be written with a general terms. It has to be specific. The adjournment motion should not question on the privilege of the House. The adjournment motion should not revive the discussion. That is, suppose a case is discussed in the same session itself, then in such cases the adjournment motion cannot make or ask to revive the discussion of the same matter again and again. So it is one of the important restriction which is placed on the movement of adjournment motion. And then the adjournment motion should not raise the questions regarding the matters which were in the adjudication of a court. That is, it includes both the Supreme Court as well as High Courts of the state. After which the final condition or final restriction which is imposed on the movement of adjournment motion is it should not raise the questions which can be raised by any other distinct motions. So if there is another kind of proceeding process is available, then the adjournment motion cannot be used. It is an important point, do note it down. If suppose for moving a motion there is an alternative mode is available, then the member has to adopt that alternative distinct motion instead of moving the adjournment motion to deal with the case. The next important motion after adjournment motion is no confidence motion. First, let us know what is meant by Article 75. The Article 75 of Constitution of India has states that the Council of Ministers were collectively responsible to the House of Parliament, which means the Ministry or the Council of Ministers stays in their office or government stays in its role till they enjoy the majority confidence in the House of Parliament, that is in the lower house especially. If the ministry or the government loses the confidence of majority of people, then the ministry or government dissolves. The Lok Sabha or the lower house has the potential to dissolve the ministry or government by passing a no confidence motion, and if such no confidence motion is approved in the House of Parliament, then the government dissolves and the new election takes place. To move such kind of no confidence motion, it needs a minimum support of 50 members from the House of Parliament. After no confidence motion, the next important motion which can be moved in the House of Parliament is censure motion. The censure motion is in many ways similar to the no confidence motion in showing the disapproval to the government of India, and also the censure motion has many differences from no confidence motion. The first difference were the no confidence motion doesn't require to show the reason for adoption in the House of Parliament, but the censure motion has to state the reason for its adoption in the House of Parliament. And then the censure motion can be filed against an individual minister or a group of ministers or against the entire government itself. But the no confidence motion in general is filed against the entire Council of Ministers. This censure motion is filed against the Council of Ministers for specific policies of the government or specific actions of the government or minister in general. Also, if the censure motion once adopted in the House of Parliament or if the censure motion is approved, it does not mean that the government has to resign or government dissolves. Instead, in the no confidence motion, if the motion is adopted, then automatically the government is dissolved in the Parliament of India. And hence, in censure motion, the Council of Ministers need not resign if the motion is adopted in the House of Parliament. After censure motion, the next important motion which is passed in the House of Parliament is motion of thanks. We know that the President of India addresses the Parliament in every first session of each general election and every first session in every fiscal year. And in his presidential address, the President outlines the policies and programs of Government of India in the preceding year and the ensuing year. This presidential address is taken into discussions in the House of Parliament, and it is the occasion available for members of Parliament to raise the discussion and debates regarding the government programs and policies. And in such debates and discussions, they examine and criticize the government functionings and the functioning of administration of the government. And also, in such discussions, they also spot the lapses and failures of government functioning in the previous year policy and programs. This presidential address is discussed in both the House of Parliament. That is, it is discussed in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in a separate motion known as motion of thanks. This motion of thanks is finally put into the voting process after discussing. and in the voting process, this motion of thanks must be passed because it is dealing about the government policies and programs of the previous year and the ensuing year. So, if the motion of thanks is not passed in the House of Parliament, then it amounts to the defeat of the government, which means it leads to the subsequent no confidence motion in the Parliament. Next important motion which can be moved in the House of Parliament is no day yet named motion. In this case, the Speaker has accepted the discussion of a particular matter or accepted the motion, but still he hasn't fixed a date for discussion of such a kind of matter. These kind of motions were known as no day yet named motion. But Speaker after some time may consider the business of the House and discuss with the leader of the House, that is the leader of the ruling party, and then after getting recommendation from the Business Advisory Committee, can fix a particular day for discussion of such kind of motion. Until then, the motion is known as no day yet named motion. So far we have discussed about motion and various type of motions. After motion, the most important parliamentary proceeding device is point of order. This point of order can be passed in the House of Parliament by member whenever the member feels that the parliamentary proceedings do not follow the regular or normal rules of the House. In such scenarios, the point of order can be moved in the House. This point of order should deal with the interpretation and enforcement of the rules of procedure of House, or this point of order should deal with the articles of the Constitution regarding the business of House. The question raised during point of order should be within the cognizance of the Speaker of the House. Usually, this point of order is used as an instrument by opposition members to take control of the government activity. The point of order is considered to be an extraordinary device because it entirely suspends the activity of the government in the Parliament of India. During point of order, no debate is allowed to take place inside the Parliament of India, and it temporarily halts the government activity, and hence it is known as an extraordinary device in the Parliament proceedings. From the exam point of view, it is important to note it down that point of order question should be within the cognizance of Speaker. It is an important point, do note it down. It must be within the cognizance of the Speaker of Parliament. After point of order, the next important parliamentary proceeding devices is half an hour discussion. The half an hour discussion can be used as a parliamentary device in the House of Parliament whenever there is a matter of sufficient public importance is already discussed and debated in the Parliament of India, but still there is an elucidation of answering is needed on certain matters of the case. In such scenarios, the half an hour discussion can be used in the Parliament proceedings. Usually, the Speaker can allot 3 days in a week time to discuss about such kind of matters. In half an hour discussion, no formal motion or no voting process is carried out. From prelims perspective, it is important to note down that half an hour discussion is used as a parliamentary proceeding device only when the matter is already debated and discussed for many number of times in the parliamentary house. It is important, do note it down. No new matter can be brought in as a half an hour discussion. Only already discussed matters can be brought in half an hour discussion. After half an hour discussion, the next important parliamentary proceeding device is short duration discussion. This short duration discussion is in existence in India since 1953 onwards. This short duration discussion is also known as 2-hour discussion because the time period allotted for this short duration discussion in Parliament is 2 hours of time. During the short duration discussions, the members of the Parliament can bring in the matters of urgent public importance to the discussion of the House. The Speaker of the House is awarded with certain powers under which he can allow 2 days of short duration discussion in a week period of time. During the short duration discussion, no formal motion or voting process is carried out in the Parliament House of India. The next important parliamentary proceeding device is known as special mention. Actually, a special mention is used whenever a matter which is not a point of order and a matter which cannot be raised in a question hour, and if a matter which cannot be raised in a half an hour discussion, and if a matter which cannot be raised in a 2-hour discussion, and in such cases those matters can be raised in the special mention. This special mention is a provision of the Rajya Sabha. In simple terms, if you have to understand it, a matter which cannot be raised under any other rules of the house can be raised by using a special device known as special mention in the Rajya Sabha. The similar provision in the Lok Sabha is what known as notice mention, and it is mentioned under the rule of 377. The next important parliamentary proceeding device is resolution. Actually, a resolution can be moved in the House of Parliament by a member to draw the attention of the government or to draw the attention of the House of Parliament to matters of general public interest. The matters dealt in the resolution have to be strictly relevant and within the scope of the general interest matters or the resolution bill. And then you have to clearly note it down that, and it is an important prelims point too, that a member who has moved the resolution in the House of Parliament cannot be able to withdraw the resolution except by cases of leave by the House. It is the only scenario under which the resolution can be withdrawn, and no other scenarios were available for withdrawing the resolution by the member who has moved it. The resolution has 3 major types, or all the resolutions fall into 3 major categories. They were the private member resolution, government resolution, and then statutory resolution. First, let us discuss about private member resolution. The private member resolution is moved by a private member. Here, the term private member means a member of the House who is not a minister. This kind of private member resolution can be moved in the House of Parliament during alternate Fridays of a week, especially in the afternoon sitting. And the next type of resolution is government resolution. Here, the government resolution is moved by the minister. Earlier we have seen that the private member resolution is moved by a private member or non-minister, but government resolution is moved by the minister, and the government resolution is moved in any day from Monday to Thursday. We have seen that the private member resolution can be passed on Friday, especially in the afternoon session, whereas the government resolution can be passed on any sitting on any day in between Monday to Thursday. And the third type of resolution or the final type of resolution is what known as statutory resolution. This statutory resolution can be moved by both private member as well as minister of the government. Here you have to note down that the term statutory resolution in the name itself states that it is dealing about statute of the government, or it always deals about the provisions of constitution or any other act of the parliament, and hence it is known as statutory resolution. Difference between resolution and motion. Here all resolutions were substantive motion. The term substantive motion means we have discussed earlier that a motion which is self-contained and independent from other motions is what known as substantive motion, and substantive motion usually deals with the very public important matters. Such kind of motions were known as substantive motions, and all resolutions were substantive motions. But you have to note it down that all motions need not necessarily be substantive, because some motions may be subsidiary, some motions may be supersediary. Likewise, there are different kind of motions were available, but all resolutions were substantive in general. So it is the important difference between resolution and motion. And the next important difference between the resolutions to the motions is all motions were not needed to put into the voting process, whereas all resolutions need to be voted upon, because resolutions were dealing with very much important matters because it is a substantive motion. So all resolutions have to be put into voting process, whereas all motions were not necessary to put into the voting process. So it is also one of the important variation between resolution and motions. And now let us take a quick review on what we have learned so far. Actually, we have learned about many important parliamentary proceeding devices. First, we have learned about question hour. Actually, the question hour is the first hour of the parliamentary procedures. It is conducted between 11 am to 12 am. During the question hour, the questions can be asked in the three important categories. They were starred question, unstarred question and short notice question. Then we have seen about 0 hour. The 0 hour is the not mentioned in the rules of procedure of the House. It is in existence in India since 1962 onwards, and then it is the time period between the question hour and the agenda for the day. That is what known as 0 hour. Later, we have seen about the motions and we have seen about different types of motion. The different type of motion in the sense the substantive motion, substitute motion, and then we have seen about subsidiary motion. After which we have seen about the closure motion. In closure motion, we have seen 4 different kinds or 4 different types of closure motion. The 4 types were simple closure, and then we have seen about the closure by compartments. Then we have seen about the kangaroo closure, and afterwards we have seen the guillotine closure. And then we used to see about the privilege motion. That is, the privilege motion can be launched by any member against any minister on grounds like withholding of facts or misinterpreting the facts in the House. And after which we have seen about the calling attention motion. Then we have seen about the adjournment motion. In adjournment motion, we have seen the various conditions for moving the adjournment motion in the House of Parliament. After that, we have seen about the no confidence motion and censure motion. We have also seen the difference between the no confidence motion and censure motion. Then we have discussed about motion of thanks. The motion of thanks is a motion which is launched in both houses of the Parliament. It is used to voting the presidential address during first session of every fiscal year and first session after every election. And we have seen about the no day yet named motion, after which we have seen about point of order. And then the point of order is dealing with the any procedure of the House which is not following the normal procedure which is mentioned in the rules of procedure of the House. After which we have seen about half an hour discussion. Then we have seen about short duration discussion. This short duration discussion is also known as 2-hour discussion. The reason is only 2 hours is allotted for discussing on matters which is kept in the short hour or short duration discussion. Then we have seen about special mention. The special mention is a device or extraordinary device which is used in the parliamentary proceeding to discuss about a matter which cannot be raised on any other rules of the House. Then we have finally seen about the resolution. In resolution, we have seen the important types of resolutions which can be passed in the House of Parliament. The important types of resolutions were number 1, the private resolution. Then we have discussed about government resolution. After seeing government resolution, we have seen about the statutory resolution. And then after everything, we have finally discussed about the difference between the resolution and the motions. And that is what all about parliamentary proceeding devices. All the very best for your examinations. Keep visiting www.commoonindia.com for further video lectures. Thank you.